All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today on the Central Indiana Regional Bikeways Plan. And to kind of start things off, we do have some chat features here. You can chat with me and also use the interface to ask questions that I'll see, and I'll try and answer those at the end unless one of them seems to kind of fit into where I am in the presentation. So to start off with a little bit, my name is Jeremy Moore. I will be your presenter and organizer today, and I'm the project manager for the Central Indiana Regional Bikeways Plan update. This is a plan that was actually created in 2012, and about every 4 years we update this as a component of our long-range transportation plan. So the MPO is responsible for planning with at least a 20-year planning horizon, and primarily we are focused on the distribution of federal funding into our transportation system in Central Indiana. We have a number of core grant programs that go to member agencies within our planning area that would be such as the City of Indianapolis, City of Avon, City of Greenwood, or the counties that are in that planning area. But the Regional Bikeways Plan, just a quick description before we really get into all of the meat of the plan, considers proposed bike facilities in local plans. And so what that means is we take a look at the perhaps it's a greenways plan or a parks plan or an alternative transportation plan or a comprehensive plan from each local community. And so we're looking for facilities that they have proposed and adopted in some way so that they can be considered as part of the overall regional plan. We look at estimated available funding through 2035. So we have looked at what funding we've been receiving in the past and kind of keep an eye on, or I guess a proposal that will hold steady through the end of the plan through 2035. And that's how we establish our funding targets in each time period. And then the plan itself is actually designed to set priorities for how we spend that money. And so by adding cost estimates to our proposed projects and having dollar figures for our funding targets, we can generate a realistic and affordable plan for the bikeway system through 2035. So we can really see what it's possible to actually get built and put on the ground over that time period. The Metropolitan Planning Organization is the entity responsible for transportation planning within the Indianapolis Metropolitan Planning Area, and that's shown on the screen there in the dark blue area. The light blue is the urbanized area, but the light blue, or the dark blue, sorry, takes into account where the urbanized area will be in the next 10 years or 20 years, actually. And within that boundary, we're responsible for a planning process. We're also, those entities within that boundary are eligible as a member of the MPO for some of the federal funding that we'll talk about later in the presentation. The MPO has a board known as the Indianapolis Regional Transportation Council, IRTC, and that is our policy body. It's made up of elected officials and town managers of each of the entities, and each one gets a vote. There's also a steering committee that was created specifically to help lead this bikeways project. It was comprised mainly of the IRTC technical representatives of member jurisdictions, as well as some local bike advocacy groups like SEBA and Bicycle Indiana and IndyCog and HIMBA. So we wanted to make sure there was good representation from those that were actually cycling in this plan. So our big picture is we're looking to establish our priorities and for investment in the time period through 2035. We've had about 4,400 miles of planned bike facilities in Central Indiana. That was the 2012 figure. It's actually going to be up to another couple hundred as I look through the local plans this time and start adding them into the new plan as part of the update. And based off our cost estimates from the last time, through the next 25 years, we can really realistically expect to fund and build about 4% of those facilities. So there's a real need to establish those priorities and spend them in the right place so that what you have on the ground at the end of this time period is really cohesive and connected and safe. Plan takes into account 4 different types of bikeways facilities. The first are trails, which are facilities that are fully separated from a road, and they're such as the Monon and the Midland Trace, the B&O Trail, Pensy Trail, those that may be more notable as greenways as well. But the plan calls them trails. Takes into account bike lanes, which are facilities that are shared in road, only may be separated by stripes from vehicle travel lanes. So they're both within the street right of way, typically 4 to 5 feet wide. Takes into account side paths, which are very similar to trails, and the real difference is they run alongside a roadway, and generally they are very straight as a transportation path, and typically separated from that roadway by a curb and or a grassy median as shown in the picture. We have bicycle boulevards, which is really a treatment for streets that bicyclists use probably on a regular basis. And so we have what is already a low volume street, and we give it over to the bicycles, still allowing cars to come on it, but really make it so that the paint markings that are on the ground, as well as signage in the area, shows that this is a heavily traveled bike route, increasing the safety for people that are using it. And those cars that are traveling down it may really only want to use that particular street if they have a house on it or are going to work at a business that's located along that particular boulevard. So here's what's in the actual plan that was adopted in 2012. We've got what I call the public-facing side, which is chapters 1 through 5, and then chapters 6 through 12, which is really kind of the meat and potatoes of how that plan was put together, how those recommendations were formed. And so the rest of this presentation, till we get to the end, is mostly kind of going through what's in those different sections so that you can see what it is that we're going to be trying to update over the course of this year. And I hadn't talked project schedule yet, but there's a good place to while I'm thinking about it. We are starting the update now. Our steering committee has had a couple of meetings, discussed some of the things that they think should go into the update. Everything's still on the table right now. We're going to have a few more meetings going through the end of the year is when we're targeting adoption of an actual fully updated regional bikeways plan. And probably sometime in the fall, and I think I've got on my schedule about September, we're looking at coming out with a draft of the plan so people can see what things were proposed to be changed and maybe how that affects the recommendations that were presented in the previously adopted plan, and give comment on those before we go for adoption. So the first chapter is about goals and vision, and we have a very broad vision statement that really amounts to increasing safety and access, encouraging more bicycle riding in the region. And so the goals that come out of that are to increase bicycle ridership and increase bicycle safety. Pretty broad, and we recognize that each of the local communities that we have in our planning area also has their own local bike plan, or at least we encourage them to. And so we try and let them set more specific goals and policies to try and achieve within their plans. We're fairly broad, again, being up at the higher regional planning level. Looking at the existing network, this is a snapshot of what the network looked like in 2012. And so the green lines on that map are actually what bikeways facilities were open. You can see there are a few greenways centered in Marion County that generally go north from US 40 or Washington Street towards Hamilton County, and a large, well-built network in Hamilton County. And the other things that you'll probably notice is Plainfield has a really good start to their system, and Greenwood is also working hard on theirs as well. And that's started to fill in a little more over the past 5 years. And I don't have those maps for you yet today, but through this process I will, and as they're available I'll be pushing them out to people. Chapter on public involvement. And so we had a public survey that garnered us about 1,100 responses, and we've got one of those out right now. So if you've taken it, thank you. If not, I'll be sure and share that with you. And the the map that you see in front of you here on the screen is actually a distribution map for where those responses came from. And you can see that the majority of those came from communities on sort of the northern side of our planning area, where bike facilities are more prevalent and perhaps there are more cyclists. And we did have a percentage of Spanish responses. And so these were collected both online by sending the link out through email, but also attending neighborhood meetings, and I'd pass them out in hard copy and then get them back and enter them in when I got to the office. The public survey itself has several questions. I think it had 15 in the form it came out last year. We've lengthened that to 20. And that public survey really started off asking questions about who the respondent is, so that we could really kind of break down whether what the age of the person is, whether they're male or female, how comfortable they are bicycling for recreational purposes versus transportation in the commuting sense or running for errands. And then the second half of it was more, what are your preferences for actually using the system, building it out, increasing access to more people. So some of the questions are here, just two of them. What percentage of respondents would answer yes to, do bicyclists have the same rights and responsibilities as motor vehicle drivers when on the roadway? And so 93%, that sounds good. This is a survey that really went out to mostly bicyclists. If you start to break it down by who the respondent is from that first section, so those that say maybe they don't bike, there was a much higher percentage of people that answered no to that, or most of the 7% are actually those that bicycled less. And so we start to see from that question where we may need some education on the actual responsibilities and laws of people using the roadway, where bicyclists and motor vehicles are allowed on the roadways. And then the bar chart on the right really illustrates a safety question. So we were trying to rate people's opinions of safety of each type of facility. You can see on-street trails has a large orange bar, the largest in that graph. And that really represents that this facility is viewed as very safe. It's fully separated from automobiles, and it's a kind of facility that would probably attract more users because of that safety aspect. And this is important for us to keep tabs on. Our plan recommendations, this map shows that we have recommendations in 3 time periods. So again, the existing open bikeways are shown in green. Those that are in time period 1 are actually shown in a red color. The time period 2, which is the next priority, is shown in an orange. And then the third priority, time period 3, is shown in a light blue. And those facilities that are beyond that, but still contemplated in the plan, they still got scores, are shown in the purple color. That means that we can't really afford to build them between now and 2035 based off of our funding targets. So right now we have about 470 miles of bike facilities in the network, and we're looking to expand that to just over 700 miles by the end of it. So now we get more towards the how was this done? How did we put together that series of recommendations type of chapters? So first thing we really did is look at projected revenue. Our Regional Transportation Council put forward that out of the federal funding that we have available, actually includes federal and local funding, 7% of that should be allocated to bicycle and pedestrian program areas. And the MPO estimates that this provides about $7.5 million annually for bicycle related improvements. So I've got the 3 time periods there that are in the bike plan, and attached what would be our funding targets during those time periods, and they're shown in year of expenditure dollars. Then what we have in the plan is really a group of proposed facilities. So you might describe them as conceptual. They're lines on a map. They may be described as what type of facility they are. If we would probably know if it was a trail and fully separated, or if it was a bike lane project, be able to tell the difference from those kind of perspectives. And that's about as much detail as we have on most of the facilities in the plan. So we were able to do general cost projections based off of whether it was a bike lane or whether it was a trail or a side path. We used INDOT unit costs to kind of develop the construction cost for different widths of trails or side paths. And then we used Indianapolis DPW costs from actually putting bike lanes on the ground for per mile cost of bike lanes based off of what they were actually spending. So we'll update those as we get into the plan this year as well, and see how that affects the recommendations. The plan also takes into account maintenance. So we're not just figuring that we can spend all of our money on new facilities, and we got to take care of what we have. So we're looking at the age of our existing facilities and trying to figure out where in our plan those are going to need to be replaced in an extreme way, not just resurfaced or something like that, but where they reach the end of their useful life and you actually got to dig down and replace a large portion of it. So we estimate that about 42% of our revenue during time period 2 is maintenance, and 34% of it during time period 3 is also maintenance and not eligible to be used for new facilities. Project funding. Chapter 10 of this document actually shows the different pools of funding that are available to fund Bikeways projects. They range from our Surface Transportation Program, which is the MPO's largest pool of money, that generally goes towards roadway and bridge and larger type projects, but those also sometimes include bikeways and pedestrian projects. So that's included, but we have a congestion mitigation air quality program as well as a transportation alternatives program that are more generally used for bike type facilities. Project scoring, this is important because it has a huge effect on the recommendations. It actually produces that recommendations map that I showed you earlier in the presentation. The scoring criteria that we had in the plan that was adopted in 2012, you can see has 10 scoring criteria, each with equal weighting, 10% of the score. And there are a few things to kind of discuss about this, and I'll let you have a little bit of insight to the way the steering committee is heading as we've been discussing this. We've got, say, your population and employment figures, and some others that are parks, schools, libraries, medical facilities. These are actual counts of what can you access within a half mile of a given facility. So we have a facility, we've broken it down into, say, a mile chunk so that we can score it. And then we take a look at what's within a half mile of it. So those things that I just described are essentially density factors. What kind of activity can you access? And those really help areas where you have density, where you have higher population and it's more urbanized. But we recognize in the regional system, we've got a lot of trails that are spanning large distances that aren't fully developed the entire length of it. And that could lead us with some gaps. And so that's one of the things we wanted to take a look at as the steering committee got into this. The transit aspect really takes a look at where existing Indigo lines are and whether or not your facilities, your Bikeways facilities, are within easy access of transit. It also takes into account proposed facilities. So the MPO works on transit planning as well. We have a proposed IndyConnect plan with new additional routes from a proposed funding source. That we want to take into account whether or not our planned facilities through the plan are going to be hitting any of those and providing access to what we hope to have in the future in the transit realm. The connection score was really about filling gaps in the existing system. So we wanted to make sure that if we were extending an existing trail or filling in a segment of it that wasn't built to increase access over distance, that was being taken into account. And we're really trying to take that into account a little bit better. So the way I've been talking with the steering committee about rearranging the scoring system is to kind of take a look at 3 different themes of items. So some of these things that are here in this list are still represented, but in a different way. So we have first economic opportunity as a theme, and that's where we're really trying to fit all of our density criteria into. So the ones that are here on the list, population, employment, parks, schools, libraries, those things fit into that very well, and they're easily quantifiable with data that we have. The second theme is the connectivity theme, and so we're looking at filling in existing gaps. We're also looking at providing service not just how many people are within that half-mile buffer area, but how many new households have access to that safe bike facility that's proposed. And so that kind of gives a little bit of weight towards areas where you don't already have bike facilities that are available, and that was seen as a needed improvement. The health risk category has really sort of become our third theme, and that's called the equity theme. And that is comprised of looking for our minority population, those living in poverty, those that do not have a vehicle, as well as age groups like seniors and those that are under the age of 18. And so these groups sometimes are underrepresented at some of our government meetings where we do planning like this, and are increasing focus sort of at the federal level to make sure that we're serving those populations adequately, and not just serving those that may be more affluent or more vocal. So the weighting that's sort of proposed right now is that first theme, the economic opportunity, be about 40% of the score. And that's sort of a reduction in the density-based themes or scoring criteria that we had from the last version, because they really made up about 60% of the overall score. And then our connectivity theme is looking to be increased to 40% of the score. That gives you more of a what is the value of this particular facility as far as how it fits into the system and provides new access. And then the equity theme, we're creating a 20% slice for that. That's the proposal that's on the table right now. So we'll continue to talk about that with our steering committee. So when we have all these project scores, then we have priorities, and we know how much each one costs and what our funding targets are. So within each time period that's in the plan, we start with those facilities of the highest priority and adding them to fill the budget caps within each time period. The time periods here start in 2011. I know it's 2015. They mirror what's in our long-range transportation plan. And the transportation plan is good for another 4 years yet, and contains these same ones. It didn't get updated to, a 2040 projection or anything like that. So we're just maintaining what we were using in the old plan because it still matches the long-range plan, and we want to be sure and do that. There are a set of policy recommendations in the Regional Bikeways Plan, and really they're recommendations from the steering committee to local entities within the metropolitan planning area. Things like adopt your own bicycle master plan to make sure that you are planning at a local level for these bicycle facilities. Adopt a complete streets policy. Several of our member jurisdictions have. We also have a regional complete streets policy adopted by the MPO that really takes into account when you're submitting for money for a project from us that is going to be for, say, a roadway facility. You need to also take into account those users that may be on bicycles or on their feet. And so that criteria is at a regional level. But also it makes a difference if it's at your local level too, because federal money really only goes to certain parts of the system, those that are on the federal aid network. And there's a large number of local roads that wouldn't be covered by that regional policy because they're only ever dealt with local funding. And hire dedicated staff for your bicycle program. These are things that can really help you get off the ground and make sure that you're serving the cycling public well. And really that completes my description of the Regional Bikeways Plan. So that's what's in the approved version from 2012, and any of that is fair game as far as updating and improving it. And there's a real focus from the steering committee on that scoring system, because ultimately that's what has the biggest effect on the recommendations that are coming out of this. You can see my contact information here. I'm Jeremy Moore. My phone number and email address are there. You can comment anytime just by contacting me in one of those ways. And if you would like, you can take our survey. I'm going to find that link and send it out to you in the all chat. It is is www.surveymonkey.com/s/MPO Bikeways. And you can go to that and take the survey if you have not already, and provide not just answers to the questions that we put, but there's also room for text-based response, so you can give us information on perhaps areas that are unsafe, or where you would like to see a facility, or how you would spend the money that is available throughout the region. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Looks like we don't have any yet. One of the things that I would like to show you before we go is the MyTip application. So bring that over to the screen. So you can visit our website for the MPO at www.indympo.org. And one of the things that you'll be able to find on here is, this is our homepage. There's this MyTip application, stands for Metropolitan Indianapolis Transportation Improvement Program. And if you click on this, this application really shows you where we're applying federal funding to projects in the central Indiana region. If you click on that first tab, you'll see we've got a large list. It's organized by the project sponsor, so what city or town or county it's being built by. Tells you a little description about the project, what type of project that it is, and then how much money and what funding category that money came from. And so there's a lot there that's probably harder to look at than something like this. So if you click on the Projects by County tab, you can then select any county that you want, and it will tell you there were 20 bike ped projects in it, and here's the total funding, $28 million for that. And as you select more, those totals will add up. So these are 3 county totals. And then lastly, there's a map that displays the actual location of our projects. And for the interest of the bike plan, you can turn off those 3 tabs, Transit, Roads and Streets, and Other, and find just the bike ped projects that are shown in green right there. And you can zoom in or zoom out to see more detail about them. But down at the bottom of the screen is where, oh, I got to zoom in to get it back for you. Down at the bottom of the screen, you can see there are some numbers here, and there's more information about those projects. So only those that are appearing in the map are appearing down below. And if you click on one, should be able to get more information about it. Click on that DES number. It'll take you back to this sort of a view, but you can see a more detailed description, as well as when you're looking at these years, you can see what years money is coming in to go towards the construction of that project. And then over here, PE, preliminary engineering, right-of-way construction, and inspections, those categories, you can see how much is going to each one as well. So you can see this particular one, Buck Creek Trail, Cumberland is doing their right-of-way acquisition in 2015, and then this amount, which kind of parallels the construction, in 2017 they'll be able to actually fund it and build it. Okay, we'll go back to the questions. First question is, would you be willing to come out and present at a Near West Town Hall meeting? Yes, I would. So I'll get with Mr. Morris about that. What are the primary differences to this plan and the Indy Full Circle plan, which was updated last year? So to answer that, this plan hasn't taken into account the Indy Full Circle plan yet. So I'm in the process of going into our mapping software and adding those facilities into our regional maps. But there's a significant number of facilities that Indy Parks has added that generally make longer, larger connections, and even create an actual full circle, sort of around the exterior edges of Marion County. And I believe that's probably going to add about 150 miles to our system. And so, yes, that will be taken into account, and it'll be broken up into chunks so that we can give those facilities scores as well. And that's the kind of thing that we'll be doing all over the planning area with other plans that have been updated to make sure we're taking into account their proposed facilities since 2012 as well. I have a question on the facilities cost estimate slide. Were the cost estimates per mile? And yes, they were in a per mile. And I kind of, as I was going through it, thought, this doesn't say per mile, but yes, yeah, you caught that. Do we have any additional questions? Well, that went pretty well, and I'd like to thank you all for being here. And you can contact me at any time by phone or by email there, and be happy to answer your questions and appreciate your participation on the update of this regional plan. Thank you. Bye.